Hello, world, and welcome to Choices Books and Gifts, where you always have choices. Today, our guest is Dr. Kyle Dean Freeman. How are you today, Kyle?
I'm doing well, Jay. It's a pleasure to be here. Thanks for having me.
Oh, that's wonderful. We got to send a little shout out to Vivacha. She put us together, and she also did her podcast with us. So, world, I'm going to just read briefly a little bit about Kyle and who he is, and then we'll go into a slew of questions, and we'll find out exactly what Kyle does. So, Dr. Kyle Dean Freeman is a men's empowerment coach and licensed physiotherapist. He dedicates his life and work on helping humans step into their full power and authentic expression by helping freeing them from pain of their past. He's the host of Online's Men's Container, the Free Man Academy, as well as does deep emotional work with men in person, one on one. He is the host of a new men's podcast, Rage On, where he shares the hero's journey of men who have gone through darkness and come out the other side. He is an avid cheese lover, and you can likely find him in a new country depending on the day you speak with him. That's very interesting.
Yeah, I like to add in a little humor there, but I do love my cheese, so I just got to throw it in there. If someone doesn't love cheese, then I have a I don't know, I might not be able to trust you.
Well, I am a avid cheese lover, so that you're in safe hands with me. Lisa likes cheese, but only one or two different types. So
Hmm.
we're on shaky ground with her. So I'm going to jump right into it if you don't mind, and
Yeah.
I have some questions written down, and I think it's best if I put on my glasses and start to read some of these. So, Kyle, our first question is I watched some of your videos. You had an interesting journey from physical therapist, real estate, reality TV, and now coaching. Can you talk about what has driven you in this direction now and what started you on this journey? How did this all get started?
Absolutely, Jay. I'll try not to go too deep into it, but
Okay.
my journey started out. I'm originally from New York. Grew up with a blue collar dad and a Jewish mother, and going through the financial struggles of 2008. That's basically when I was getting prepped to go to university. There was this fear of just find something that is secure and do something that is secure with your life, because my dad lost a ton. He was out of work for almost a year, and it was a hard time for many people, including my family. And so at the time, if I could have had it my way, I'm a drummer, and I would have went to school for music and tried to become a punk rocker, or something along those lines. But I chose the more secure route, going into healthcare, because at the time it was healthcare or tech, and tech was not my thing. And I had already worked at a pharmacy, but didn't want to do the same thing my brother was doing, which was pharmacy. And so I found the route of going into physiotherapy. I enjoyed being athletic, taking care of my health, and enjoyed helping people. And so I went into that, not knowing if it's the career that I fully wanted, but we have to make a choice at 18, right? 7 years later and a lot of debt, I came out ready to finally make money and start my life. And that's what I did. But I also recognized that although I grew professionally in gaining this degree, there was still a lot of personal matters that I haven't addressed, that I was still having issues with my mental health, cycles of depression, issues with relationships, and speaking to my truth and knowing really who I was. And although I worked my butt off to pay off my almost $100,000 in loans in 2 years and gained a lot from being in healthcare, I eventually learned that there was other ways I needed to make money, and that I didn't want to be a slave to a job, a slave to a healthcare corporation for the rest of my life, that I was meant for more, that I could do more. And my first year out of university, I started my first physical therapy business, helping people in their homes without insurance, more concierge care. And it was depressing. It was hard. I had no idea what I was doing. And that's basically when I began my journey of entrepreneurship, of like, what is it that I want to do? Let me start throwing darts at the dartboard. I started to open my mind to different influences in education, learning about real estate. I got signed by an LA talent agency my first year out of school, think I might get into acting. Lived out of a bus for 5 months to try van life, and also was a traveling physiotherapist for multiple years, finding that good balance of being able to see the world as well as make a good income and not just be a slave to work. Ultimately, ultimately I got tired of all of it. I got tired of who I was working with, being in the healthcare system and having a boss, and ended up going on a reality TV show for a brief time. You can see me on Amazon Prime. It's called The One That Got Away. And ended up getting more into coaching and realizing that all this personal work I'd been doing on myself, working in the field of personal development, sexuality, intimacy, and men's work, I decided to really start just putting content out there more, gaining a large following of over 200,000 across platforms. And now at this moment, I run an online academy called the Free Man Academy, where I help men to free themselves from a lot of the pains that I've experienced, so they can live a life free from the shackles that have been holding them back.
Great, great. So it sounds like in order to do what you're doing today, what helped was you had your own challenges, your own difficulties that when you started this journey, you found that this can, helping yourself can also help others.
Absolutely. We are, I believe, mirrors into one another, that we are more similar than we are different, despite what the media and politicians and everything out there wants us to think in order to profit off of us in some way. And I believe that our mess is our message, as you will, that we all have our struggles, our darkness, our pain, our mistakes. But it's what we learn from that actually is our gift that we can share with others and recognize that, hey, you're not alone. I've been through it and I know how to get to the other side. And I'm willing to share what I've gained from that experience to help you get there as well.
I'm sure that makes you a very, very good therapist. So it seems like your passion is to help people who are struggling or exploring their life purpose, specifically in the framework of sexual empowerment. Can you talk to us about that? What is sexual empowerment and how are you helping people with that? You specifically mentioned men's sexuality. Can you tell a little bit more about that?
Absolutely. So I've done a lot of work through the International School of Temple Arts on top of my doctorate degree in physiotherapy, which does help knowing the body, knowing pain and trauma. And in the field of sexuality, I believe is the most vulnerable parts of ourselves. That when we are in the bedroom, when we are expressing ourselves, when we are nude and being seen fully, that's where we are at our most vulnerable. And a lot of people out there haven't had the right education. I know I had very little in growing up in school. And so we mostly learned from not the best sources, from porn and movies and alike. And that's led to a lot of disconnect in relationships, a lot of disconnect within the self, that a lot of men and women are not secure in their bodies or secure in their sexuality, or just don't have a place to discuss these situations and problems that arise and feel scared. They feel insecure and they feel fearful that if they do start to open up about this and try to understand these parts of themselves, that they will be shamed, judged, or criticized like they have been in the past. And so I learned a lot about this topic and this field of sexuality and intimacy because I personally struggled in that area. As a man, without getting into my childhood traumas too much, I just didn't get the love that I needed in the ways that I needed growing up. And that led to me seeking love through sex, that I began to connect sex as being what love was. And I recognized that I was good at it and it can make people like me. But it led to issues. It led to me contracting chlamydia a couple times. It led to me hurting people's hearts, including my own, cheating, manipulating, and doing things I'm not proud of. But it was through working with my own coaches and having that space that was healthy and safe to discuss these topics without the fear of judgment that led to me better understanding myself, learning that parts of my desires were okay. And it was just, I needed to learn to accept them so I could honestly come forward and express them to other people so that I could either say, hey, accept me or don't. And that's okay if you don't. Go find what you love. I'll go find what I love. And that freed me a lot from the pain that I was experiencing and allowed me to start expressing myself authentically. And so that's why it's a big part of the work that I do, because there's a lot of men out there who do hold trauma or pain or shame around their body, around their genitals, around their abilities in the bedroom, or just their ability to communicate their needs, their desires, their fears, their boundaries. And so I want to empower men to know that they can do these things, to build a better relationship with themselves and be able to express their sexuality in whatever form that comes, that is true to them.
That's fantastic. It's so true what you started off with earlier about, our sexuality. What do we do? And I always say schools are teaching a lot of the wrong things. They don't teach about life, financial things, sexual things, all of the things that come across in life. They don't deal with. And I learned from my older brothers from the street, things of that nature. I did not learn a correct way, a healthy way. And I see that's what you're doing. So our next question is, what are some of the issues you are seeing with men around the confidence in sexual identity or sexual confidence? How do you help them address it? And what interesting cases are you seeing and helping with? What do you see is most problematic in this realm?
Yeah, great question. So I help various men with various issues in this realm. Everything from men who have gotten divorced and realized that they were gay and have had trouble accepting their sexuality out of fear of their family hating them, their kids hating them. I've helped men who had insecurities in their body, who are afraid to put themselves out there, helping men who do have issues with erectile dysfunction or just psychological blocks in the bedroom that keep them from staying hard or having a pleasurable experience, or just overcoming trauma that came in a sexual or physical way that impedes how they feel about themselves and understanding what their sexuality is. And many of these men are older. They're in their 40s, 50s, even 60s, because those individuals didn't have a lot of the freedom of expression or felt fear to express themselves when they were growing up, as opposed to what we have now, that every day in the media you hear about sexuality and what it means to be gay or trans or this or that. And so I fortunately grew up in an age where there's more freedom to express and discuss these topics. And so a lot of these men who come to me have had these fears for a long time, or only discovering that, hey, there's someone safe here that I can talk to without the fear of that criticism, shame, or judgment that I've experienced in the past about what it means to be a man and how I can express my emotions. And so it comes with creating that environment for men to feel safe to have these discussions, because safety is required for understanding and authenticity to grow and expand.
Excellent, excellent, excellent answer. So, what other areas do you work in? What are you seeing the community needs most? Look at, you know, maybe things that are under the radar that we're not looking at. Do you have things of that nature that you can share with us?
Yeah. So right now, in 2024, I would argue that one of the biggest problems is that men in general are just getting a bad rap, and they are being put down in many ways. I am the presumptuous straight white male who is the terror to society nowadays in some people's eyes. And we are also getting criticized for what masculinity really is. And there's a lot of differing opinions, controversial opinions. We have everything from red pill to blue pill to black pill. And it's hard for men to know what is okay, what is not okay. Where am I going to be canceled? Where can I express myself? Where can I not? And the truth is, so many men have expressed themselves at some point in their life, whether it was to their family, to a girlfriend, in social media, and it's been met with backlash. It's been met with immense criticism, shaming, and that's led to men ultimately closing off, not sharing anymore, not expressing their emotions out of fear that, you know what, I'll just do it all myself. I'll fix all my problems myself, because every time that I've asked for help, expressed my emotions, it's been shut down. My needs haven't been met, and I've been made to feel dumb or stupid or worse. And so we are seeing an epidemic of loneliness amongst men, a lack of sex amongst men, a lack of real relationships amongst men, and just a lack of overall healthy men in society. And I could go into why I believe that's happening, but I want to be the cause to help men come back to themselves, come back to what it means to be a man, and live a healthy life so they can be happy, be fulfilled, and lead the life that is authentic to them, despite what the world, what social media, what politicians, what media wants them to do. Because we need circles of men to come back together where we can safely express ourselves and hold each other to a higher standard, and not let ourselves fall into cruxes and coping mechanisms such as drugs, alcohol, sexual addiction, weed, eating, social media, Netflix, all the things that we use to get away from our pain, and instead learn how to move through your pain so you can move past it and not use it as a crutch.
Yeah, yeah. I know I'm a bit older than you, and I'm a white male, like as you pointed out too, and I'm older, so I'm always, sort of walking on eggshells because the way I was brought up, the things that you can say and do back then are not things that you can say and do today. So it's like, I'm always trying to educate myself, and when I speak, I'm in fear of saying the wrong thing, so I have to just be on top of it all the time. But you also mentioned, some of the reasons why you think this is happening today, and why don't you share some of those things that you just said that you're
Yeah.
going to?
So there's a couple things. I believe
I
in
do.
America specifically that we have a media right now and a lot of people in power who are working to disempower men, because men are a threat. Healthy men are a threat. Healthy masculine men are a threat because they are not afraid to speak up, to provide their opinion, to quote unquote hold the line for what they believe in and what they value. And so if the people in power don't want a worthy opposition that can stop them from advancing whatever beliefs and values and ideologies that they want to advance, well, then they have to work to disempower the men who do exist, because that means it's going to be much easier to advance some of those ideologies and things that they believe in for their gain, whether that's through profiting or whatever it is that they are gaining from that. Um, so I don't want to get into specifics with that because I don't want to make things political
Right,
here. But there's
right.
also just generally, you have society is changing. Right now, there's a good thing that is happening is women have more opportunities, and a lot more women are beginning to go to college and get educated and make more money than a lot of men out there, which is not inherently a bad thing. We want women to have opportunity. It's great. However, it is making the pool of men who are worthy husbands, boyfriends, providers to be smaller, because now women, their bracket has gone up and now they are looking for someone who makes more than them and can provide more than they can. And so that small group has gotten smaller. And there's a lot of men who don't fall into that bracket anymore. and they are getting frustrated that they're not enough. They have to continue making more money. The economy isn't helping at all because it's getting even harder to live and wages aren't necessarily going up. And so it's just generally becoming harder to be a worthy man for multiple causes, for marriage, for providing, for raising children. And so a lot of men are just saying, why bother? Why, you know what? I'm just going to give up. I don't want to deal with women. It never works out. I'm never enough. And society tells me I'm a piece of crap for X, Y, and Z reasons. And so, you know what? I'm just going to do my own thing, be bitter, and close off.
Yeah.
And it's sad. And so I want to be a voice to say it doesn't have to be like this, and that there is a better way, and just know that you're not alone.
Yeah, yeah. It's also true. It's almost like, without getting too political, the white American, gentleman that is successful has to dummy it down a little, so not to offend or hurt
Mm-hmm.
people, and be taken the wrong way. Like, I really feel I'm the bad guy sometimes, and I don't know why. I shouldn't be the bad guy. I think I'm a gentleman and a good guy, but I'm meant to feel that way, as you said, through the media. A lot of the media does that to us. So we're moving along here, and I am loving what we're talking about. What are some of the signs we need to identify just to realize that we need to seek some help? Is there anything that we should be looking for, or just a general unhappiness?
Yeah. So if I can, I've spoken with hundreds of men over the past few months, through messaging, in my programs, on calls, consultations, and there are patterns that I recognize. There's always a pattern because, again, we are mirrors into one another. We are all going through similar stuff. For one, a lot of men are simply holding on to a lot of pain and shame from the past that they haven't addressed. And so if you're a man out there listening to this, or a woman who has a man in their life and you're noting some struggles, this is worth listening to. Recognizing when they are not fully expressing themselves, if you're a man who feels fear over speaking your truth, when you know you're self-censoring or holding back or just saying, I'm fine, I'm good, it's okay, it's likely a sign that you're not. Uh, if you are holding on to pain from the past, it's likely that you are in cycles of negative behaviors that aren't benefiting you, and you're wondering why the same thing keeps happening. Maybe you keep attracting the wrong partners and your relationships keep failing. Maybe you're utilizing different coping mechanisms to get by and you're not feeling good about yourself or your health, such as marijuana or alcohol or sex or food. These are not inherently bad things, but our relationship to them can be if we are utilizing them to avoid and distract from our pain. And also, this is a big one. If you are someone who constantly says they're going to do certain things but doesn't do them, that's a big sign that you need some support, that you need a plan, that you need some guidance, because that's a sign of low self-esteem, low confidence, and that cycle only causes you to go lower. Because when you say you're going to do things and you don't do them, you lose trust in yourself, trust in your own word, and so do all the people in your life. And if you are that type of person, you're likely attracting those types of people into your life as well. So if you want to lead a healthy life, be a respected man, and feel good about yourself, then there's certain foundations and principles that you need to begin to live by. And when you're surrounded by other men who are doing that same thing, who are living and leading by those principles and values and can openly speak and express their emotions, it gives you permission to do the same. And it also encourages you to do the same. As they always say, and it is so true, you are a summation of the 5 people you surround yourself with. So for the guys out there who are surrounded by other men who are just going to the bars on the weekends and watching sports and just working an average job, well, that's probably the person you are too. And if you're the guy who's surrounded by a bunch of men who go to the gym regularly, who meet up to go hiking, who talk about business and ideas, well, you're likely going to be one of those guys too, or be inspired to be. So if you are not leading a life that is aligned, things aren't going well, you're not happy, you don't have healthy relationships, then it's a moment to pause and reflect on, am I holding to my own word? Who am I surrounded by? And what pain am I avoiding in my life that is causing me to use these coping mechanisms that are only hurting me further?
Yeah, yeah. You said a few things that just hit right home. I mean, until I found my own journey and freedom in life, I remember as a young kid, I'd be a great starter, but a terrible finisher. I started stuff, but never finished. And when that happened, it would affect my self esteem tremendously. And it wasn't until I learned from people like yourself that in order to get self esteem, you have to do esteemable things.
Mm-hmm.
So I thank you for that. All right. Is there a specific process you use, or is it an individual person to person kind of thing? Or is it a general practicing thing that you do with everyone?
Yeah, great question. So everyone I work with is treated as an individual because everyone comes to me with individual struggles, needs, pains, and experiences. And so we create specific goals for each individual. Some come to me because they're really wanting to focus on their health, like get physically healthy and find accountability with their diet and exercise and their daily routine, which also impacts how they feel emotionally and relationships. Then there's others who, uh, got divorced, their relationship fell apart, and they're just feeling terrible about themselves and utilizing, those coping mechanisms because they're in pain. And so it's more releasing a lot of the emotional trauma and the emotions they've been repressing so they can let go of the past and start moving towards a better, more disciplined and healthy future. So in short, everything is individualized, but I do have certain programs that I take people through where I provide specific trainings that help them with these different areas of their life. Because most of the men who come to me need to go through these different phases where they're in this pain, they have this trauma, and their life is very inflamed. They're anxious, they're stressed, they're not in good habits. So we essentially take a pause. We look at where they're at and look at where they want to go, or figure out
Right.
where it is that they want to go, because some don't always know. Figure out what that is, and then we reverse engineer that by creating those healthier habits to become that person, envisioning who that ideal self is that they want to be, that they know they can be, and then going through a second phase where we help with releasing a lot of the past, that past person, those past thought patterns and behaviors that weren't benefiting them, and all of that emotional trauma and pain that they're still holding on to. And then going into phase 3, where we provide support and a perspective shift on recognizing that you are the creator of your reality, by recognizing that through your actions, you can create the reality around you, whether that's you want to create a family or you want to be nomadic like me, traveling the world and growing your own business, that it's through your actions that you can create the life that you want. And we make a lot of those changes in a short period of time, in just a couple months. And for those who want a more hands-on one-to-one experience, I work with men in person, one-to-one, for a 3 to 4 day experience for those who really need that private one-to-one care.
That's great. That's great. I know that, not every cookie shape fits every different person out there, but it was interesting that you had mentioned. Hold on. So, it sounded like you had certain steps in line for your processes. Is this, and I know everybody's different, but what is a timetable with somebody who wants to come see you, and what does the normal process take? 3 months, 4 months, 2 weeks?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, great question. So the goal is within 3 months for people to get a massive change that they're looking for. And
Wow.
then they get support for a total of 12 months, because part of it is ensuring that this is sustainable change, that they have support to continue integrating what they have learned and this perspective shift or this lifestyle shift. Because for many people, it can be easy to fall back into those previous ways if they don't have the support, the accountability. So
Yeah.
just about all the men I work with have a massive shift in that first 3 months, sometimes even sooner, because they're getting the right information, they're making the habit changes, and then they have support for 12 months where we have group coaching calls, we have other men coming on sharing their stories. And when you're just in that consistent new pattern, it becomes a new normal. So that the old patterns and the old ways are gone. And now we've created this new pattern that is sustainable, and you have the support to ensure that you don't go back.
That's great. That's great. You know, your timetable, if I may say, is wonderful because everything and everybody today wants the quick fix. Get, how long is this going to take, this and that? And I think 3 months is an extremely fair amount of time where
Mhm.
some people spend years in therapy and don't get anywhere with it.
Yes.
So that's terrific. Kudos to you. Is this a new area of help? Is it something new, or has this been around for a while? Your technique especially. How is your process, the healing of taking care of someone, different from what the typical therapist would do out there?
Yeah. Yeah, that's a great point you bring up. And so it comes back to my journey a little bit because I've been on this personal development path for years, like over 7 or 8 years now, and coaching for about 3 to 4. And I've been through the gamut. I've spent between my professional and personal development over $160,000. That's not to gloat. It's just to say, like, I knew I needed to invest in this to change because I just was tired of my old ways, and tired of being unhappy. And I went to therapists, different ones that didn't match, ones that did match a little bit better. Times when I got a little help and it was helpful to just open up and talk, but didn't really actually get any implementable steps and actions that would create real change. Um,
Absolutely.
I used the social media, Instagram pages, listening to podcasts, audiobooks. I've done my work, multiple retreats through the International School of Temple Arts. I've done a ton of psychedelic journeys between mushrooms and ayahuasca, and just the gamut goes on, breath work. And so I've been through a lot of these things because it wasn't just one thing that helped. I realized that in order to make real change, I needed a combination. It was more of what I call a multifaceted approach, or you could say a more a holistic approach, where it's not just talking from therapy. Because I get so many men who do come to me who say, yeah, I've been to a therapist, it wasn't a good fit, or they just sat there and listened to me, or I've been going for years and only making slow progress. Because it is just talking. When a lot of these problems are embedded in our nervous system, in our body, and we need to release a lot of that, not just through talking, but through what we call somatic practices. So if you've ever heard of breath work, if you've ever heard of just emotional release techniques, there's different tools that we use through my program that I have learned through my journey, that with that, in concordance with the one-to-one coaching, in being in a group of other men where we can hear and open up and express ourselves and practice in a safe container, plus all of the educational trainings, it's just gives you all of the tools to make real change. And that's why these men make change in just a short amount of time, because they're getting the right prescription. That if you have a disease and they give you the wrong antibiotic that doesn't treat that disease, well, you're not going to get better, or it might help a little bit until you get the right antibiotic that kills off that disease. And now you can start a new life and get healthier again. And so
Excellent.
I like to use that analogy because so many people out there have tried different methods and they just didn't work, or they worked a little bit, but they're still feeling down and not feeling good. So that's
Yeah.
where the free man method really comes as a result of my education as a doctor of physiotherapy, but also through my personal experience of knowing that it doesn't take just one thing. It takes this multifaceted approach to support men specifically to get to where they need to go.
Cool. Very, very, very cool. Um, so, what's the number one thing that you would say an individual needs to start living a productive life?
The number one thing for a man to start living a productive life is what I say just about every single week in my academy. And I've said it already, but it's do what you say you're going to do.
Yeah. Yeah.
Is do what you say you're going to do and hold to your own word. Because if you don't hold to your own word, you're not going to take action and you're going to stay stuck in your own problems. That if you are not taking action out of fear, then, well, be prepared to stay where you are, because it's action that changes your life. And so if you're afraid to take that action or even know what action to take, and that's what could cause many men to freeze, is I just don't even know what to do anymore, then that's when you need to reach out for help. That's when you need support from those who have been there, who can support you in figuring it out, that you do not have to do it all by yourself, that even though you've been hurt in the past by other people, that there are people who exist who won't do that to you again and are here to listen to the good, the bad, and the ugly. And I take pride in the fact that I do that because I know that's what I needed when I was going through it. And I had a coach named Jess who provided that space for me, and it meant the world. And that's when my life began to change, because I could finally be who I truly am.
Very good. Very good. Listen, let me ask, do you also, forgive me, help women as well? Do you have women clients?
Yeah, so I've had women clients in the past, and if women do reach out to me, I'll work with them more on a one-to-one basis at this time, just because my academy is specifically geared towards men. But yes, I've worked with women in the past, in person and online as well.
Great. Is there anything you want to add about any of the things we spoke about, or any other subject you may feel is important at this time? Is there anything we didn't speak about that you'd like to, or I know that's probably a difficult question to answer.
No, it's okay. I believe that if there's men or women listening out there right now who are struggling and in pain and listening to this podcast or others, looking for advice, looking for inspiration, or what many call motivation, understand this, that you can listen to the podcast, you can read the books, you could scroll Instagram all day long and feel a little bit better here and there and take in some good advice. But nothing's going to change unless you take real action, unless you take on some risk and take action in the face of some of your fears. And the best way to make that change is to get support. And I'm not just saying that because I'm a coach. I'm saying that because I've been there. And I tried to do things all on my own because of my trauma, because I didn't trust people, because I feared people knowing the truth. And I'm on the other side of that now. And I've recognized that it's scarier to be stuck where you are for another year or 2 years or 3 years out of fear and out of not taking action than taking the risk to get help and get support. Because, and on this last note, I have experienced friends who have committed suicide in my life when I was younger. And it's a big reason why I am in this work today as well, because one of my best friends unfortunately hung himself in his own home when he was 20. And it was terrifying. It was painful for me. And I've had my own suicidal ideations in my life because of the pain and struggle that I've been through, and feeling like nothing's going to change. No one's here to support me, that there's nothing I can do. And I want you to know that there is support, and real change that can happen if you are willing to take the risk and willing to jump in the face of fear and recognize that it's not that bad after all.
That's wonderful, Kai. You're doing such a wonderful job. So if I was a man listening to this podcast right now and I wanted to reach out to you, what's the best way to get in touch with you?
Yeah. So if you're a man who's in struggle and pain and you're just curious to learn more, or do want to talk to me and find out what I could help you with, the place I hang out the most is Instagram. You could just send me a message directly on Instagram at Dr. Kyle Dean. That's where I answer my messages most. You can also check me out on Instagram, on YouTube. I also have a lot of free trainings there if you want to learn more about my story and just get some free trainings as well.
Perfect, perfect. So, in closing, we're about to wrap this up. What is the number one thought you would like to leave our listeners with today?
The number one thought I would love to leave everyone with is that you are loved. To not fall into the trap of cynicism in a world that is getting rapidly faster and negative and changing, to find circles that you can belong in where you are accepted for all of you, the good and the bad, and that you're not alone. And so if you need help, reach out, allow yourself to be loved, and give yourself permission to lead a happy life.
Kyle, that was wonderful. It was a pleasure meeting you, getting to know you, doing this podcast with you, and I'd like to stay in touch with you even after this. So may God bless you. Have a peaceful day, and to everyone out there and where you always have choices, we'll see you next time. Bye bye now.